Stop scrolling. Close every distraction. Put down your coffee, silence every notification, and lock your door. What I'm about to reveal requires your absolute undivided attention because the financial establishment is deceiving you. They're not lying outright. They're lying through omission. They're showing you the scoreboard while concealing the fact that the entire stadium is engulfed in flames. You're staring at your screen on Saturday, January 10th, 2026, watching silver trade near $80.17 after closing with a massive 4.6% single-session surge on January 9th. Social media is exploding with celebration. Retail investors are high-fiving. Reddit threads are filled with "We made it" proclamations. The bull market has returned, they say. The breakout is finally here. You are catastrophically wrong. You're mesmerized by the smoke while ignoring the 5-alarm fire beneath your feet. The price action at $80 is merely a superficial symptom. The real story, the catastrophic structural implosion happening in real time, is buried deep within the technical clearing reports of the CME Group, hidden from public view, ignored by mainstream financial media. While the world celebrates green candles, the foundational plumbing of the global silver market just suffered a rupture so severe it threatens to drain the entire reservoir. And the evidence is irrefutable. The river that reversed direction. We just received confirmed data for the trade date of January 8th, 2026, and it validates a phenomenon so rare, so financially dangerous, and so technically abnormal that most modern traders have never witnessed it in their entire careers. We're not discussing a short squeeze. We're not analyzing a retail buying frenzy. We're examining something called backward rolling, and it's the death certificate of the paper silver market. Let me explain the gravity of this situation. In futures markets, time is supposed to flow in one direction, like a river moving downstream. As contracts approach expiration, sophisticated traders execute what's known as a forward roll. They exit the expiring month, say January, and purchase contracts for future months, say March, because they're speculators seeking price exposure, not physical metal. They don't want armored trucks. They don't want warehouse fees. They just want the trade. On January 8th, 2026, that river stopped flowing forward. Then it began flowing upstream. We just received the confirmed delivery numbers, and they are absolutely terrifying for the bullion banks managing this casino. 1,124 contracts stood for delivery. That's 1,124 separate entities who stood up in the middle of a historically dormant non-delivery month and slammed their fists on the table, demanding immediate physical settlement. That represents over 8.12 million ounces of physical silver, vanished from the available float in a single 24-hour period. But here's the critical part that separates this from routine delivery activity. These entities didn't just stand for delivery, they aggressively moved their positions backward in time. They abandoned the liquid, safe, institutionally favored March 2026 contract. They paid transaction spreads. They absorbed immediate warehousing costs, armored transport expenses, and insurance premiums. They took on the logistical nightmare of immediate settlement. Why? Why would sophisticated institutional investors rush into an expiring contract at the 11th hour just to secure metal immediately? Why wouldn't they simply wait 60 days for March delivery and save thousands in transaction costs? There is only one rational answer: absolute, unadulterated fear. This is a ghost signal. This is the kind of data anomaly you only witness immediately before a currency collapse or supply chain seizure. The price at $80 tells you demand is high, but 1,724 backward rolls tell you something far more sinister. Trust is dead. The trust signal screaming from the ledger. The whales, the industrial giants, battery manufacturers, solar panel producers, and sovereign wealth funds have stopped believing the metal will be available in March. They're examining the vaults. They're analyzing Chinese export controls implemented on January the 1st, 2026. And they're reaching a chilling conclusion. A paper promise for March delivery is worthless if the vault is empty in February. So they're grabbing chairs while the music still plays. They're looting the warehouse before the doors slam shut. They're collapsing the timeline between promise and possession. To understand why this specific contract volume represents the straw breaking the camel's back, you must understand the mechanics of the trap they've just sprung. We need to strip away financial jargon and examine the trust signal flashing crimson red across the dashboard. Normally, a delivery notice is a routine administrative formality. But when you witness delivery notices spiking violently in a month that's supposed to be dormant, it's like watching ocean water recede rapidly from the beach, right before the tsunami strikes. January is technically an active delivery month, but historically, volume evaporates by the second week. Big institutional players typically migrate their capital to March, the next major front month, where liquidity and safety supposedly reside. But examine what happened to March on January 8th, 2026. While 1,624 contracts materialized seemingly out of nowhere in January, demanding immediate metal, the March 2026 contract hemorrhaged 2,563 contracts in open interest. Money is fleeing the future. This is a bank run, but instead of depositors demanding cash, sophisticated traders are running for bars. The mathematical proof of system failure. Let's open the forensic ledger. Let's examine the hard evidence proving the exodus has commenced. We're not trafficking in Twitter speculation or Reddit conspiracy theories. We're analyzing the cold, hard forensic accounting contained within the CME Group Daily Bulletin, the black box flight recorder of the silver market. This document records every trade, every open position, every delivery notice. And for trade date January 8th, 2026, the black box just screamed. Critical data points, deliveries. In a standard non-delivery month like January, you expect perhaps 10, 20 stragglers settling accounts. Instead, the report shows 1,624 delivery notices issued. Each contract represents 5,000 ounces. That's 820,000 ounces evacuated from available float in 24 hours. This isn't routine settlement. This is a coordinated extraction rate. March 2026. Contract. Open interest dropped by 2,563 contracts. March is supposed to be the deepest liquidity reservoir on the board right now. We're all institutional capital parks. Yet it bled over 2,500 mile-average positions in a single session. If traders were simply closing positions and exiting the market entirely, total open interest across all months would decline proportionally. That didn't happen. The capital didn't leave the casino. It moved tables. It rushed to the immediate delivery window. February 2026. Contract. Open interest surged by 378 contracts. February is historically a ghost town, an illiquid nothing month sandwiched awkwardly between active January and March. Yet hundreds of traders suddenly stampeded into this dormant contract. Why? Because February is 30 days closer to physical metal than March. They're willing to sacrifice liquidity just to cut the line. January 2026. Contract. Despite being an expiring contract where liquidity should be zero, 1,147 contracts traded on the Globex electronic system on January 8th. Traders were frantically buying contracts the banks were offloading, then immediately converting them to delivery notices. The mathematics are undeniable. March lost 2,563 contracts. January and February absorbed that capital and immediately converted it into physical metal withdrawals. This is the textbook definition of a bank run, except the asset being run on isn't currency. It's silver bars. The time preference collapse. What we're witnessing is a phenomenon economists describe as time preference collapse. In stable societies, economic actors exhibit low time preference. They plan decades ahead, invest for retirement, delay gratification for future rewards. But in collapsing systems, time horizons contract violently. The future becomes irrelevant. Only immediate possession matters. The 1,624 entities who executed backward rolls are screaming a singular message. We don't care about silver prices in 2027. We only care about possession tonight. This psychological shift obliterates the pricing models bullion banks rely upon. Their algorithms assume stable time preference, that offering higher March contract prices will incentivize traders to roll forward and wait. On January 8th, 2026, those algorithms failed catastrophically. The banks almost certainly attempted to bribe long position holders to roll forward. They likely offered tighter spreads, better terms, financial incentives. And the institutional response was an emphatic no. Because you cannot bribe a drowning man with promises of oxygen next month. The mechanics of backward rolling. Why it signals death for those new to futures markets, let me explain why backward rolling represents such a catastrophic warning signal. Understanding the plumbing is essential to comprehending the explosion. For 50 years, futures trading has functioned like a game of hot potato. Traders buy contracts to speculate on price movements, but nobody actually wants the potato. Nobody wants physical delivery. A hedge fund manager in Connecticut doesn't want 5,000 ounces of silver shipped to his office. He lacks a forklift, a vault, insurance infrastructure. He simply wants price exposure. So as the delivery month approaches, as the potato gets hot, he executes a forward roll, sells the current month contract, January, buys a future month contract, March, kicks the obligation down the road. This is how banks maintain the illusion of unlimited liquidity. They rely on 99.9% of market participants perpetually rolling forward, never demanding metal, never testing the vault. It's an endless paper shuffling carousel, keeping prices managed and physical inventory safely stored. But on January 8th, 2026, the music stopped. Players did something JP Morgan's risk models classify as statistically impossible. They stopped kicking the can. They stopped playing hot potato. Instead of rolling forward to avoid metal, they rolled backward to seize it. Picture the mechanics. These traders held March 2026 contracts, sitting comfortably in the most liquid, safe, standard position available. They had 60 days of time value, zero immediate pressure. Yet they examined the geopolitical landscape and made a violent decision. They sold March positions, explaining the 2,563 contract open interest drop, and aggressively bought January and February contracts. They moved from future to present, from paper month to delivery month. Why is this a trust signal? Why does this terrify the banking cartel? Because in futures markets, you pay a steep penalty for immediacy. When you roll backward, especially into a delivery month already underway, you cross bid-ask spreads, pay transaction fees, absorb immediate warehousing costs, arrange armored transport, purchase insurance. Financially speaking, it's expensive and inefficient. In a world where you trust the system, you would never do this. If you believed JP Morgan possessed ample silver inventory and you could easily secure your metal in March, you'd simply wait, keep your capital invested, and let the contract ride. The only rational economic reason to pay the backward roll premium is if you believe the promise of future delivery is a lie. You're paying for certainty. You're declaring, I don't care about extra costs. I don't care about logistics. I care about possession now. This is a vote of no confidence. Every single one of those 1,624 contracts represents a sophisticated entity staring the COMEX in the eye and calling their bluff. It's equivalent to a bank depositor, witnessing a growing withdrawal line and offering the teller a bribe just to extract cash before the bank closes for the weekend. The convenience. Yield explosion. When you witness backward rolling, you're observing the convenience yield, the economic benefit of holding physical assets, skyrocket toward infinity. The market is screaming that a bird in hand is now worth 10 birds in the bush. And for bullion banks, this is a nightmare scenario because it destroys their price management mechanism. Their entire manipulation architecture relies on the forward roll. They depend on their ability to sell infinite quantities of paper silver for future delivery, knowing they'll never actually have to deliver it. But when markets start rolling backward, paper transforms into lead. It becomes a physical liability that must be settled in bars, not dollars, and bars are finite. You cannot print silver bars. You cannot quantitatively ease metal into existence. You must extract it from the ground, refine it, and ship it. When we observe 8 million ounces demanding immediate delivery in a historically quiet month, it reveals that the inventory buffer has vanished. The float, the silver available to lubricate market operations, has evaporated. This is why banks are terrified. Because if 1,624 entities want metal in January, how many will demand it in March? If panic is igniting now at $80, what happens when price breaks $85 or $90 plus $5? Backward rolling is the first structural crack in the dam. It's smart money evacuating the paper Ponzi scheme before retail investors even realize the game is rigged. The Asian vortex, where the silver is going. Those 8.12 million ounces aren't disappearing into private collections or hobbyist vaults. They're being sucked into a gravitational black hole that opened on the other side of the Pacific Ocean. We must connect the dots between New York panic and the Shanghai premium. The reason convenience yield is exploding in New York is because physical silver in Shanghai is trading $7+ higher than COMEX spot. Do you comprehend what this means for global arbitrage traders? If you secure a bar in New York for $80, you can immediately sell it in Shanghai for $87. That's nearly 10% risk-free profit in days. An infinite money glitch. The only bottleneck? Actually extracting the physical metal from COMEX vaults. This explains the backward rolling perfectly. Traders rushing into January contracts aren't just scared of default. They're exploiting arbitrage. They're racing to grab New York inventory so they can ship to Shanghai before the window slams shut due to export controls or shipping blockades. Every day they wait is lost profit. Every day increases the risk that the arbitrage opportunity vanishes. So they're cannibalizing the March contract to feed the January export machine. They're draining the West to feed the East. China's strategic silver hoarding. But this isn't purely profit-driven. It's strategic. China isn't paying premiums because they appreciate shiny metals. They're paying premiums because they need the metal. As of January 1st, 2026, China implemented strict export controls on critical minerals, including silver. They've effectively declared, what's in China stays in China. But they didn't stop importing. They're hoarding, building a strategic silver reserve to match their solar panel manufacturing dominance. They recognize silver is the new oil. They understand the green energy transition is impossible without it. So they're weaponizing their massive trade surplus to vacuum every available ounce from the Western financial system. They're keeping Shanghai prices artificially elevated to function as a relentless vacuum cleaner for global inventory. And Western banks, JP Morgan, COMEX, are helpless to stop it. They're contractually bound by their own rules. If a trader stands for a delivery in New York, the bank must provide the metal. Refusal would trigger immediate default and shatter the market instantly. So they're forced to hand over bars, forced to watch their vaults drain day after day, knowing full well those bars are never returning. Once a bar enters the Shanghai Gold Exchange ecosystem, it's removed from Western float forever. It's a one-way valve. The March liquidity. Crisis approaching. This is the context for yesterday's trust signal. The backward rolling is the sound of exit doors slamming. Smart money knows the vault is leaking. They know JP Morgan cannot continue feeding the Chinese vacuum cleaner indefinitely. At some point, and that point is approaching rapidly, inventory will hit zero. Or, more precisely, it will reach effective zero, where the only remaining metal is owned by entities refusing to sell at any price. When that happens, arbitrage ceases because there's nothing left to arbitrage. And when arbitrage stops, the New York price must gap up $7+ overnight just to stop the hemorrhaging. The Asian vortex will force COMEX to reprice reality. So when you observe silver trading at $80 today, don't think expensive. Think discount. Think mispricing currently being corrected by the brutal efficiency of physical markets. The West is holding a going-out-of-business liquidation sale on silver. The East is buying the entire inventory. The 1,724 contracts on January 8th were merely early shoppers rushing the doors. The real stampede hasn't even begun. The inevitable march to $100. This brings us to the final verdict. We've examined the backward rolling. The ghost signal proving smart money is terrified of the future. We've analyzed the convenience yield explosion, proving a bar in hand is worth infinitely more than paper promises. We've tracked 1,624 contracts, abandoning March's liquidity pool to seize metal immediately. And we've traced that metal flowing into the Asian vortex, where Shanghai's premium functions as a relentless vacuum draining Western vaults. The picture isn't just clear, it's blinding. The bridge to $100 has been constructed. It's no longer a question of if. It's barely even a question of when. The market mechanics have already determined the outcome. You must understand, markets like this don't reverse. When trust shatters, it doesn't heal overnight. When depositors run on banks to extract cash, they don't calmly return it the next day because a manager smiled reassuringly. Once shortage fear establishes itself, it becomes self-fulfilling prophecy. Panic buying creates the shortage, which intensifies panic buying. The backward rolling witnessed on January 8th is merely the first tremor. Next comes industrial panic. Solar manufacturers, battery producers, defense contractors, they'll examine this data and realize their supply chains are catastrophically vulnerable. These entities don't trade silver to speculate. They need it to operate. They need it to avoid factory shutdowns. They need it to fulfill government contracts. They'll buy at $80. They'll buy at $90. They'll buy at $100. Because the alternative is bankruptcy. Your action window is closing. But you know the truth. Every time they suppress paper prices, they widen the Shanghai spread. They strengthen the vacuum cleaner. The system is broken. The trust holding the paper market together for 50 years has evaporated. We're returning to a world of hard assets, where possession is 9/10 of the law, where wealth in hand destroys wealth on paper. The signal has fired. The data is confirmed. March is bleeding. January is feasting. Don't be the person waiting for March. Be the person demanding delivery now. The countdown has reached zero. The destination is triple digits.